PlayStation announces a new partnership between the company and the gaming industry's biggest chat and community platform, Discord. The announcement comes as a bit of a surprise, but is an impressively big partnership for PlayStation. PlayStation's announcement comes after rumors circulated last month that Microsoft was in talks to acquire Discord. Those talks were reportedly ended at the tail end of the month. Regardless, it is an undeniably big grab for the PlayStation platform. While some Discord integration is present on Xbox platforms, it is limited, with players only being able to link their two accounts so that their friends on Discord can see what games they are playing. It is unclear if PlayStation's integration of the service will go further than Xbox's, but it is difficult to imagine that it won't. The announcement came via a blog post to Sony's website from company president and CEO Jim Ryan. The post reveals that PlayStation has made a minority investment in Discord as part of a deal between the two companies to bring their experiences closer together sometime early next year. The news comes following a big week for PlayStation, as the PlayStation 5 just received its first big AAA game launch in Returnal. The blog post does not give many details on what PlayStation players should expect from the partnership, but it is not hard to imagine how Discord's community and chat features could be integrated into PlayStation consoles. It would be particularly interesting to see how the PlayStation Share features could integrate with Discord's to allow players to share their screenshots and video captures with their friends on Discord. A recent PlayStation patent for a like button in the PlayStation Store was published, indicating that, combined with the Discord partnership, how players interact with the PlayStation platform could look very different in the near future. Sony's partnership with Discord makes a lot of sense. Discord is a big name in the games community and boasts a staggering 140 million monthly users. PlayStation 5 getting a deeper integration of Discord will give the console a big leg up on its competition, and it will be very interesting to see what else comes from the partnership. The stake also follows a few other moves by PlayStation to invest more into parts of the gaming community, such as PlayStation's acquisition of EVO Champions Series in March. Only the future will reveal what all comes out of the partnership, or what other partnerships PlayStation will pursue, but for now, it is a big grab for PlayStation. Of course, earlier this year, Xbox hinted at just that functionality coming to Xbox. At least partially, anyway. Xbox's social media manager Josh Stein replied to a Discord tweet discussing the company's Hack Week and floating experimental feature ideas for official implementation. In response to what fans wanted to see added to Discord, Stein in particular replied requesting some kind of true Xbox integration between Xbox and Discord. Obviously, this was both after the official partnership and integration back in 2018, as well as being a pretty blatant nod to potential future functionality. Discord Xbox integration still remains limited in its current form. However, this interaction is clearly hinting at some expansion of Discord's integration with Xbox, presumably with cross-platform voice chat. Partnering with PlayStation is clearly the next logical step in this equation. Discord has had third-party options like Quarrel for true cross-platform party chat, but other than it being an unofficial workaround, other options were often laggy or inconsistent. Offering a first-party Discord app that has cross-platform voice chat with Xbox, PC, and soon PlayStation as well, is exactly what gaming needs moving into the next generation. Players using smartphones or other devices simply to chat and play with friends may be no more. Cross-platform gaming, whether it's just between Xbox and PC, or as far removed as Xbox and PlayStation, is becoming far more common in multiplayer gaming. Obviously, with Fortnite's worldwide phenomenon making the first major push towards a platform-agnostic future, numerous games have implemented crossplay since then, including major franchises like Call of Duty. Epic Games even ended up paying royalties to PlayStation, among other rumored terms, to enable crossplay for Fortnite initially. Now it seems Discord may be in a similar boat, something which undoubtedly led to Sony's acquiring of a minor stake in the company with a new investment. Discord still retains its independence in the wake of this partnership, presumably pursuant to the idea of remaining a pivotal middleman for cross-platform play and communication. Considering Discord passed on a rumored potential acquisition of $10 billion by Microsoft, along with the partnership with Sony and investment into integration, it only makes sense. Capitalizing on a dual partnership between both major console makers, Discord could potentially be positioning itself in a place that could facilitate even greater cross-pollination of console gaming communities. Full integration would mean PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X/S players could chat together, ideally. It's not much less of a pipe dream than it was before 2021, but full cross-platform integration with Discord could certainly become a possibility in the future. Only thing that's really in the way is whether or not these companies will be willing to play ball with a partial community integration by way of Discord. Obviously Xbox Live and PSN would never join services together, but a third-party Discord offering could be the ideal bridge between consoles. Microsoft has oftentimes expressed positive sentiments towards platform-agnostic gaming, whereas Sony has routinely been averse to integration efforts. That being said, a third-party offering like Discord could be the key. Moving forward, we have an interesting Last of Us topic that is going viral on social media. The Last of Us 2 released in June of last year, and was met with an incredibly mixed reception from critics and fans alike. While many thought that the narrative structure of the game showed a maturity in dealing with its many moral quandaries, others found some of the game's twists to be jarring and forced. The gameplay also saw a melange of different responses, with some accusing the gameplay of being slow and constrictive, and others praising it for its high emphasis on stealth. Despite some controversy, however, The Last of Us 2 was a success, critically and commercially, winning a huge number of awards and receiving mostly good reviews. The alleged Microsoft review says that The Last of Us Part 2's chapters are walking simulators. The writers also say that while certain aspects of the combat are vastly improved over the first game, such as greatly enhanced AI and more choice in how you clear areas, they say that Naughty Dog still can't seem to make decent gun combat in any of their games. They do point out that the gunplay seems to fit into the game's theme of angling gameplay towards stealth combat. They will say it like this because they cannot create such fantastic games, and Gears 5's gunplay combat looked flat when compared to The Last of Us 2. The reviewers, known only as Mike and John, at one point state that the visual quality and attention to detail in The Last of Us Part 2 is absolutely best in class in basically every area, and the overall presentation is significantly ahead of anything that other teams have been producing on console and PC. Even after describing certain sections as walking simulators, the reviewers point out that as narrative elements, they are exceptionally well done and set a standard that other games in the genre should be aspiring to. The overarching sentiment from this document appears to be a positive one, as while the reviewers acknowledge that players certainly have every right to their subjective feelings and opinions on the game's narrative, they go on to suggest that the advancements Naughty Dog has made with narrative storytelling in The Last of Us 2 is more important than whether or not everyone likes it, or even if everyone has fun playing it. Mike and John finished their review by stating, "We loved it, had a great time playing it, and find ourselves still thinking about its characters and stories even after finishing the playthrough." While there are certainly some criticisms of The Last of Us 2's gameplay and narrative elements in this review, it would be difficult to assess this document as damning to The Last of Us 2 in any discernible way. The concerns about certain combat elements and the occasional slow pace of the game are relayed in a relatively subdued manner by the reviewers, and for the most part are bookended by praise for other elements of the game, such as narrative storytelling and impressive visuals. We also have some another Last of Us news, as Neil Druckmann has a story outline already written out for The Last of Us 3, but Naughty Dog hasn't even begun to actually work on the project. Considering how much of a critical and commercial success The Last of Us 2 was, it won more than 300 Game of the Year awards in 2020. A sequel feels very much like an inevitability. Naughty Dog are currently working on other projects, but director and co-writer Neil Druckmann has revealed that he has written out an outline for the story of The Last of Us 3. The game itself, however, has yet to enter production. Appearing on the Script Apart podcast, as transcribed by IGN, Druckmann naturally touched upon a third Last of Us game. Unsurprisingly, he didn't share any details about the story itself, so it's unknown whether a third game would continue Ellie's story or focus on a new protagonist entirely. He clarified that Naughty Dog hasn't started actually making it yet, only saying that he hopes it will one day come to fruition and explore what happens after the events of The Last of Us 2. He adds that, while there have been discussions about a third game at Naughty Dog, actually making it would no doubt take years. Fans had to wait 7 years for a sequel to the first game, so a third game could take just as long, perhaps even longer, thanks to Naughty Dog's other projects and possibly even the coronavirus pandemic. He said that he don't know how much I want to reveal, and he did write an outline for a story that they're not making, but he hopes one day it can see the light of day, that explores a little bit what happens after this game. They've now had 2 games that he feels speak to something universal, as well as telling a very personal story for these characters. With 1 game, there's no pattern of what a franchise is. With 2 games, now there's starting to be a pattern. Now he feels like there are some structural and thematic themes that they'd have to stick to if they're making a third game. One thing Druckmann did share is that, with Last of Us now an established franchise, the third game would have to follow similar patterns to the previous entries, meaning it would stick to the same structural and thematic themes present in those games. Whether that would mean it would be as controversial or as dark as Last of Us 2 is another question entirely. For the time being, fans of the series do have other content to look forward to. Naughty Dog is supposed to still be working on The Last of Us 2's multiplayer mode, which was initially supposed to be included but was removed so the studio could better focus on the single player. There have been very few updates about it, though, and it's suspected that it may not release until 2022. There is also the reported PlayStation 5 remake of the original game, which Naughty Dog has yet to officially announce. That said, this piece of news was met with a lot of criticism and negativity since many feel that it arguably doesn't need to be remade. The news broke in the wake of other unpopular decisions being made at Sony, such as the Days Gone sequel being cancelled, and the restructuring of its Japan studio, which likely only amplified people's frustrations. Neil Druckmann also had good reasons for switching the live-action adaptation of The Last of Us from a movie to a TV show. With all the excitement surrounding the upcoming HBO series adaptation of Naughty Dog's The Last of Us, it's easy to forget that the beloved video game duology almost got a full-fledged movie. But whatever happened to that version of the story? Well, according to Neil Druckmann, writer and director of The Last of Us games as well as writer of the HBO series, it looks like the infamous development hell that continues to plague video games of all sizes can also infect films, and the feature take on this post-apocalyptic drama was one such victim. Originally, Druckmann and his team wanted to handle the film indie style, cutting down on the action scenes in favor of a much more intimate feel and story. The Last of Us is, after all, a heavily character-driven series, with the admittedly brutal combat scenes mainly serving to develop that end. But as planning progressed, it became more and more clear that the type of story they wanted to tell was far more suited to a series than a movie. Perhaps helping that revelation was the overarching theme coming down from the higher-ups, asking the team to keep increasing the scope of the film. When he worked on the movie version, Druckmann said when discussing the project on the Script Apart podcast, a lot of the thinking and notes were like, how do we make it bigger? How do we make the set pieces bigger? I think that's ultimately why the movie wasn't made. This sort of disconnect on the story's scope ultimately led to the HBO series being greenlit, and by extension, it seems as though fans technically have overzealous producers to thank for the chance to now see the Mandalorian himself Pedro Pascal as co-lead character Joel in The Last of Us. The HBO series will follow the story of the first game in The Last of Us series. It's set in a post-apocalyptic setting where a mysterious fungus has toppled society, turning every living being it touches into mindless beasts. Pascal's Joel is tasked with escorting a young girl who appears to be immune to the plague across the country, where her blood can hopefully be studied and synthesized as a cure. The girl, named Ellie, will be played by Game of Thrones actress Bella Ramsey, and her developing relationship with Joel largely permeates the bulk of the story itself. Considering both the tone and scope of The Last of Us, it definitely seems to be a good thing that Druckmann ultimately deciding that a series would serve it better than a movie. Not to say that films can't elicit an emotional response from the audience, the still continuing discourse surrounding Star Wars, The Last Jedi is proof of that, but when viewers have more time to get to know characters, the personal beats hit that much harder. It's why a long experience like The Last of Us as a game works so well, and why it translates best into a series, theoretically, anyway. Eager fans still have a bit of a wait before The Last of Us premieres on HBO, but just knowing that this level of thought was put into what is arguably the most important part of the story should put some minds at ease until then. Here's hoping it turns out just as well as everyone is imagining it in their minds, because that always turns out well. The console wars may never end, but crossplay is a highly coveted feature among gamers, regardless of our choice of system. Some titles, like Rocket League and Fortnite, have already seen the benefits of multiple console communities merging under one gaming experience, although in the case of Sony, developers were supposedly being charged for crossplay support. Astonishing as it may sound, Epic Games CEO Tim Sweeney confirmed that Sony indeed forces the studio to pay compensation for enabling crossplay. Crossplay has long been promoted by rival company Microsoft, having extended an invitation to Nintendo and implementing the feature between PC and Xbox systems. Sony did similarly with PC for some titles, though for various reasons, the company chose to block crossplay with other platforms at first. That changed once Sony implemented a beta phase for a few select titles, Fortnite included, and eventually stated that the doors were open for any studios looking to invest in crossplay implementation. Following recent developments in the Epic vs. Apple lawsuit, a few documents regarding Sony's cross-platform policy were leaked. Essentially, Sony charges developers royalties for crossplay if the PSN revenue share is less than 85% in any given month. Via testimony, Epic CEO Tim Sweeney confirmed that Sony is the only platform holder that requires Epic to pay compensation for crossplay. In certain circumstances, Epic will have to pay additional revenue to Sony, said Sweeney. If somebody were primarily playing on PlayStation, but paying on iPhone, then this might trigger compensation. Sweeney also verified that prior to enabling crossplay in Fortnite, Epic Games was required to pay the fees. Additionally, Sony states in its crossplay policy that publishers can't transfer any virtual currency to or from PlayStation, and that there must be a setting to disable cross-platform play entirely. Epic Games first approached Sony back in 2018 with a crossplay proposition, promising to paint PlayStation as the heroes among numerous other offerings. Gio Corsi, Sony's then senior director of developer relations, turned down PS4 crossplay, stating that many companies are exploring this idea and not a single one can explain how cross-console play improves the PlayStation business. It's hardly a secret that Sony was previously a major obstacle in allowing crossplay between PlayStation and other systems. Some had already suspected money was a reason behind blocking PlayStation 4 crossplay, and this is all but a direct confirmation. Sony likely never planned on fully revealing the process of enabling crossplay to the public, and given the implications of the policy, it's easy to see why. With time, Sony may find itself in the headlights of a subsequent Epic Games vs. Sony lawsuit for its predatory business practices. As part of recent new developments in the Epic vs. Apple lawsuit, it has come out that Sony actually charges developers royalties for crossplay at a certain point. Once the proportion of the game's revenue share divided by the PS4 gameplay share hits below 85%, developers are charged the missing percentage to offset the difference. The practice of console-exclusive games is nothing new, and in fact, it typically helps create a healthy competitive atmosphere in the industry to make better products for gamers. However, Sony's specific method can be viewed by some as predatory and alienates smaller studios from sharing its products with a wider audience. In the confidential leaked image, there is an example of how Sony's payment system works. During 1 month of a game's release, if the total revenue equals out to $1 million and Sony makes about 90% of the total profits over the competitors and 95% of the gameplay share, the developers are not charged. In the second month, if the game makes the same amount of money, and has the same percentage of gameplay share, but Sony only makes 60% of the shared revenue, Sony subtracts its revenue share from its overall gameplay share in multiples that amount by 15%. Which, in the example, comes out to around $52,500 that the studio will have to pay Sony out of pocket. Luckily, developers are not charged by Sony royalties whenever the PSN revenue share is higher than the 85% total revenue amount. The company requires the individual studio to send monthly reports to each different Sony territory the total amount of the revenue share. And if the individual studio is below 85%, it will be required to pay the respective Sony location the requested amount within 30 days. Additionally, the agreement allows Sony to audit the individual studio's record storage concerning cross-platform revenue share if it feels that there is a violation. The date on the leaked image dates back to 2019, so there could be a change in policy that the public does not know about. At the moment, there is no word about Sony's response to the issue or what it will do moving forward. Ideally, some compromise will be reached where Sony can balance healthy competition and fairness towards other companies. For most players and developers, Steam is the de facto leader when it comes to PC marketplaces. The service has continued to expand and grow after its launch back in 2003, and remains the largest digital distribution platform available, which is a big reason why it is so appealing for game makers. The pandemic has also proven to be a boon for Steam, which broke multiple records for concurrent users due to people being stuck at home. However, the service is starting to see more and more competitors attempting to grab a bigger piece of the pie, including Epic Games, which offers monthly free games to users in addition to its own sales events. Microsoft, while does feature games on Steam, also has its own storefront players can utilize to sync up their profile, achievements, Game Pass, and more Xbox Live related features. Now, Microsoft is looking to increase its PC presence and putting even more pressure on Steam with its latest announcement. Matt Booty, the head of Xbox Game Studios, made a number of PC-centric announcements in a new blog post earlier today. In an effort to help game developers find success on Microsoft platforms, Microsoft announced updates to its store terms for PC developers. Starting on August 1st, developer revenue share is increasing by 18%, going from 70% to 88%. This change has no strings attached and simply means that developers will be earning more based on overall sales. For Microsoft, this means the company will be making less from every game sale and half of what Valve currently takes in. Valve has continued to use the 70/30 split, a fact that Microsoft is hoping will make releasing on its own PC store more appealing for game makers. In fact, this move mirrors what Epic Games has done with revenue sharing on its own online store when it first launched, allowing developers to make more money for individual game sales compared to its competitors. Revenue share is currently a hot topic for developers. A recent GDC survey revealed that only 3% of developers currently think the 70/30 split on digital storefronts is justified. This number is actually down from the already low 6% approval from 2020, with recent changes from Apple, Google, and Epic Games largely spearheading this drive for change. While Steam does provide a discount if a game is making tens of millions, it'll be interesting to see how or if Valve responds, considering that most of its competitors are now making sweeping revenue changes. And as our final topic, we have some Stalker 2 news, as GSC Game World, developer of Stalker 2, has stated that it would be impossible to run the game on PS4 and Xbox One due to their hardware, and also the anticipated FPS survival horror title isn't going to be an Xbox exclusive for long, Microsoft internal documents show. Xbox's exclusive rights to an anticipated title is ultimately shorter than some may have expected. Stalker 2, announced as a limited-time Xbox console exclusive, has been confirmed to only be remaining on the console for a matter of months before heading on to other platforms. This move gives Microsoft's console a short-term edge in attracting die-hard fans of the cult classic Stalker series, while not harshly punishing those fans on its native PC platform. Currently, there are no details concerning if the PlayStation 5 will receive a port of Stalker 2, though prior statements by GSC Game World, developer of the Stalker series, have already confirmed there will be no release of Stalker 2 on last-generation consoles due to performance restraints. It is confirmed the title will come to PC, likely through the Xbox storefront. There are no details regarding a Steam release. The window of exclusivity is a relatively paltry 3 months, with the added caveat that this period of time will be console exclusive. The vague wording raises questions about Stalker remaining an Xbox exclusive title, as it heads to PC at the start of 2022, 3 months after Stalker 2's projected Q4 2021 release date. The Stalker series, started in 2007 with Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, has exclusively been on PC for the entirety of its lifespan. This is the first time that a game in the Stalker series is being brought to consoles, and many fans with last-gen consoles have likely had their hopes dashed recently, as GSC Game World has stated that Stalker 2 is a next-gen game, and it's impossible to run it on Xbox One or PS4. While many other titles are being released as cross-generation, the developers of Stalker 2 seem fairly adamant that they do not want to be held back by creating a game that runs on the previous generation. While owners of previous generation consoles may be disappointed by this announcement, it does mean that for next-gen and PC owners, the game will likely be designed to run more optimally. GSC Game World has confirmed that Stalker 2 will run on 4K on Xbox Series X, with HDR support for both the Series X and S. Ray tracing will also be able to be utilized by PC players with capable hardware, and GSC is claiming a steady 120 frames per second on Xbox Series X. As new generation consoles come onto the market, the sorts of trade-offs developers and publishers are having to make are becoming more evident. One of the major reasons behind Cyberpunk 2077's issues was its release onto previous generation consoles, when the game clearly wasn't a polished product on the Xbox One and PS4, and many developers are likely looking to this as an example to avoid. With the anticipation for Stalker 2 rising as the game nears its vague release date of late 2021, fans may be disappointed by its lack of release onto previous-gen consoles, but they can at least breathe a sigh of relief that GSC Game World is taking the game's stability into consideration. As the fourth installment in the vaunted series, Stalker has a dedicated fan base who follow the series' utterly miserable horror setting, based in the Zone, a reflection of the Chernobyl exclusion zone, where the radiation-soaked concrete of the infamous nuclear power plant has become host to an array of alien artifacts, mysterious anomalies, and deadly mutated creatures. While the original titles certainly show their age graphically, the new installment seems set to push the boat out and provide a clean slate after the Stalker series' decade-long interim. Microsoft's increasingly successful Game Pass initiative will, as with all other Xbox exclusives, receive Stalker 2 as soon as the title releases, giving those on the service access to the full title for the subscription price. While the Xbox Series X is still trailing the PS5 in terms of units sold, Microsoft's PC empire continues to grow alongside the American giant's Game Pass catalog. The short-term exclusivity of Stalker 2 on the Xbox Series X is likely to give the Microsoft flagship a boost heading into the festive season, while the availability of Game Pass will give both console and PC players a cheap way to access the game. After such a long wait for die-hard fans, this access alongside potential access to game-expanding mods for console players could leave both veteran and initiate scavengers left with plenty to do in the Zone for a relatively low price for a new release. After all, it looks like Sony, Microsoft and Nintendo are going in their own ways. The friction of competition is becoming thinner, and that's not good. Competition is what gets you better. Xbox should make their moves on exclusive AAA titles, PlayStation should continue their momentum, and even poke further, and Nintendo also should come into the party. It's all I wish. And that's all for the video, guys. Like and share the video for a bigger audience, comment your thoughts on the discussed topics, and if you want to contribute to the channel by means of donation, the link to my PayPal is in the video's description. You can send me donations which will help me to make more contents consistently and new things such as gameplay, podcasts and live streaming. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon, and until then from SMPV it's goodbye.